The story begins with a 20-year-old guy named Will Hunting. He lives in a rough, poor neighborhood but works at the world-famous Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Sounds impressive, right? But here's the truth. Will isn't studying there. He's just cleaning the university's buildings. One day, while scrubbing the hallways, his eyes catch a super tough math problem written on a chalkboard. It was put there by Professor Gerald Lambeau. The professor had challenged the entire college. Whoever solves this problem will have their name printed in the university's books, earning fame and respect.
I also put an advanced Fourier system on the main hallway chalkboard. And I'm hoping that one of you might prove it by the end of the semester. And the person to do so will not only be in my good graces, but also go on to fame and fortune by having their accomplishment recorded and their name printed in the auspicious MIT Tech.
Will stares at the problem, his mind hooked. He thinks about it all day. Even when he's hanging out with his friends at a bar, his brain's stuck on that equation. Suddenly, he ditches his friends and heads straight to his small, rundown house to work on it all night. With no chalkboard at home, he writes the solution on his bathroom mirror, erasing mistakes and trying again. After hours of effort, he finally cracks it. A few days later, while cleaning at MIT, he sneaks to the chalkboard and writes the correct solution. When Professor Lambeau sees it, he's stunned. He can't believe one of his students solved such a hard problem so fast. He's desperate to find out who this genius is.
This is correct. Who did this? Jack?
Wasn't me.
Nimish?
No way.
That same evening, Will is out with his friends when they run into some guys. One of them mocks a girl, and Will recognizes him as the jerk who bullied him as a kid. Furious, Will tells his friend to stop the car, jumps out, and attacks the guy without thinking. He lands a punch, and soon a full-on fight breaks out between the two groups. Minutes later, the police show up. Will's friends try to pull him away to save him, but it's too late. The cops arrest Will. The next morning, Professor Lambeau is lecturing his students. Everyone's eyes are on him, curious to know who solved the tough math problem. But no one in the class speaks up. A bit disappointed, Lambeau says, "If someone's already solved that one, I'll give you an even harder problem." He explains this new problem is something he and his colleagues have been working on for 2 years, and now it's written on the chalkboard.
However, my colleagues and I have conferred, and there is a problem on the board right now that took us more than 2 years to prove. So let this be said. The gauntlet has been thrown down, but the faculty have answered, and answered with vigor.
Meanwhile, Will gets out of the police station and tells his friends he has a court date the next week. That evening, back at his job, he sees a simpler problem on the board. He quickly starts solving it, making sure no one notices. Just then, Professor Lambeau steps out of his office and catches Will writing. Angry, he asks, "What are you doing here?" Will apologizes and backs off. Lambeau assumes he's just a troublemaker scribbling nonsense and tries to grab him, but Will slips away fast. When Lambeau looks at the board again, he's shocked to see the correct answer written there.
Looks right.
That evening, after work, Will goes to a bar with his friends and tells them he got fired from his job.
Why did you get fired, Will? Come on.
Management was restructuring.
The next day, Professor Lambeau is determined to find this mysterious genius. He heads to the janitorial office and asks for the name of a young guy working there. The staff thinks he's there to complain about the cleaning, so they don't immediately give up Will's name.
I just need the name of the student who works here.
No students work for me. If anything was stolen, I should know.
No, it's nothing like that. I just need his name. This is important. Please.
Later, it comes out that Will wasn't clean in MIT by choice. It was court-ordered community service. Now, his court date arrives. In court, Professor Lambeau is present. Everyone watches as Will defends himself, showing an impressive knowledge of law and society that leaves people amazed. But with a long list of past offenses against him, the judge sends Will to jail and sets a $5,000 bail. Later, Lambeau visits Will in jail and tells him the judge has agreed to release him, but with 2 conditions.
First condition is that you meet with me every week.
What for?
Go with the proof you're working on. Get into some more advanced combinatorial mathematics. And the second condition is that you see a therapist.
Will thinks he doesn't need a shrink, but to get out of jail, he agrees. Out of jail, Will starts studying with Professor Lambeau. and solves even the toughest math problems with ease, impressing the professor. But therapy is a different story. Lambeau brings in several psychologists, but none can handle Will. The first one gets scared off when Will mocks his book, saying he read it in one night and found it unimpressive. The doctor storms out in anger.
What happened?
Well, I'm going on national television next week. I haven't even got time to tell you, much less talk to that raving loony in there. An absolute lunatic he is.
Another psychologist tries hypnotism to calm Will, but that fails too. Frustrated, Lambeau is ready to give up when he remembers his old college friend, Sean Maguire, now a psychologist. Lambeau visits Sean's office, explains Will's case, and invites him to discuss it over dinner. Sean initially refuses, citing a busy schedule, but Lambeau convinces him by comparing Will to a famous mathematician who made breakthroughs without formal education. Intrigued, Sean agrees to meet Will. In their first therapy session, Will does his usual thing, being rude and cracking jokes to mess with Sean. He even mocks a painting Sean made, calling it worthless. Sean stays calm, but when Will makes fun of his personal life and his wife, Sean snaps. In a stern voice, he warns, "If you ever mention my wife again, I'll ruin you," and ends the session. Later, when Sean sees upset, he offers to let him drop the case, but Sean firmly says he'll meet Will again the next week. After the session, Sean thinks deeply about Will's words, especially the mention of his wife, which makes him feel lonely. Meanwhile, Will's life moves forward. He goes on a date with a girl named Skylar whom he met at a bar. Skylar tells him she inherited a lot of money from her dad and plans to attend Stanford University. They have a great evening and end up kissing at a diner. In their next therapy session, Sean takes Will to a park bench instead of the office. When Will starts his usual mocking, Sean stops him. He says he's thought a lot about Will's words and has something to say. Sean tells Will that, despite his sharp mind and book knowledge, he knows nothing about real life. He can read about artists, but has never left Boston to see their work in person. He can recite war books, but has never seen a battlefield. He can quote love poems, but has never truly loved a woman or opened his heart to one. Most importantly, until Will shares his own pain, no one can understand what it's like to be an orphan. Sean says books can't teach these things, life does. In the next session, Will stays silent the whole time. Sean sits calmly, knowing Will is testing him, and he's right. In the following session, Will breaks his silence with a crude joke and they start talking lightly. Will mentions his date with Skylar. Sean asks if he'll see her again, and Will admits he might not because he doesn't want to ruin the perfect image she has of him. Sean explains that Will is actually scared of ruining his own perfect image, not hers. Real relationships mean accepting each other's flaws. Sean shares a story about his wife, who recently passed away from cancer, saying he misses her quirks and habits the most. True love, he says, comes from embracing someone's imperfections. For the first time, Will listens carefully.
Visits Skylar at her dorm, surprising her since he hadn't called in a while. She agrees to go out with him. The next day, they go to a dog race and have a great time. Skylar asks where Will grew up, and he jokingly says he has 12 older brothers. Skylar laughs, calling it a lie, but Will doubles down with a funny story, promising to introduce her to his family soon. Later, Skylar asks how you know someone's your true partner. The question sticks with Will, and he asks Sean about it the next day. Sean smiles and says he knew his wife was the one the moment he saw her. He shares a story about skipping a rare baseball game because he met a beautiful girl at a bar that day, his future wife. He says he's never regretted missing that game. Skylar keeps pushing Will to meet his real family, but he avoids telling the truth.
When am I going to meet your friends and your brothers?
Well, they don't really come down here that much.
I think I can make it to South Boston.
Instead, he introduces her to his friends. Skylar fits in easily, joking and drinking with them. But a comment from his friend Chuck upsets Will by the end of the night. Meanwhile, Professor Lambeau meets Sean at a diner to discuss Will's therapy. Lambeau doesn't care about Will's past. He wants to know what Will will do next under his guidance. Sean says he won't pressure Will, who needs to decide his own path. This angers Lambeau, who says he's already set up meetings with big shots for Will. They argue.
So, you wanted to talk about Will?
Have you talked to him at all about his future?
No, we haven't gotten into that yet. We're still banging away at the past.
Well, maybe you should. My phone's been ringing off the hook with job offers.
It's great that there are offers, but I don't really think he's ready for that.
Nothing compared to this young man. I'm not sure you understand, Sean.
Well, what don't I understand?
We've got to give this kid direction. He can contribute to the world, and we can help him do that.
Well, maybe he doesn't want what you want. Direction's one thing, manipulation's another.
Well,
all right?
Sean!
You have to let him find
Sean, I'm not sitting at home every night twisting my mustache and hatching a plan to ruin this boy's life.
And the scene shifts to a big company meeting meant for Will. Instead, Chuck shows up, demands money, and ruins the deal with his bad behavior.
Will, our offer is $84,000 a year plus benefits.
Your situation, for you, would be concurrently improved if I had $200 in my back pocket right now.
Will and Skylar spend a romantic evening, their bond deepening. At her place, Skylar confronts him, saying she's moving to California for Stanford and wants Will to come with her. Will refuses, making excuses. Skylar says he's stuck in his small world, afraid of challenges. This sets Will off. He thinks Skylar's just toying with him because he's poor. Shocked, Skylar asks why he's so hung up on money. Tearfully, she says if she had to choose between her rich dad's money and her dad, she'd pick her dad every time. She admits she's scared too, but is honest with Will. He brings up her lie about having 12 brothers, and Will loses it. He yells that she wouldn't want to know his real life, an orphan abused as a kid. Skylar, teary-eyed, says she wants to know everything, no matter how painful. She confesses she loves him, but Will, his heart closed off, coldly says,
I don't love you.
Will meets Professor Lambeau, who's furious because Will's antics at the business meeting messed everything up. Will snaps, saying he's not even sure he wants an academic career. Their conversation gets heated, with Will's sharp mind outwitting Lambeau, who feels disrespected and says Will owes him some gratitude. They argue, and Will storms off. Later, Will is offered a job at the National Security Agency with promises of a great career. He flat out refuses, saying he won't ruin an ordinary person's life for political games. Will meets Sean again, who asks why he turned down the national security job. Will laughs, saying he's waiting for a better opportunity. Sean, as his psychologist, asks if Will has a friend he can open up to, or if he ever feels lonely. Will dodges by listing famous philosophers. Sean says real relationships are with living people. He asks what Will truly wants if he's serious about his future. Will jokes he'd be fine laying bricks or herding sheep. Sean sees he's avoiding the truth and, angry, kicks him out of the office. Shocked, Will asks why, and Sean says it's because he's not being honest, hiding his true self. Will brings up Sean's wife, asking where she is. Sean calmly says she's no longer alive. Time passes and Will calls Skylar, but she's done waiting since he won't commit. She says, "I love you. Take care," and leaves for California. Will starts working construction with his friend Chuck in Boston. Meanwhile, Lambeau, on a call, says Will isn't fulfilling his responsibilities. If he reports this to the court, Will could go back to jail and Lambeau's conscience would be clear. During a work break, Chuck asks what Will plans to do with his life. Will jokes he'd rather stay in Boston, hang with friends, and avoid solving math problems like a lab rat. Chuck snaps, saying Will is wasting his talent. He admits he dreams of the day Will leaves home to build a real life.
Now the scene shifts to Lambeau, where he learns Will stopped attending therapy with Sean. Furious, he threatens to tell the judge, blaming Sean for pushing Will back to crime. Sean says he doesn't care if people laugh at him, but he won't ignore Will's feelings. He tells Lambeau he's never known real love and has lived alone his whole life. Lambeau, thinking Sean's jealous of his success, refuses to listen. Sean explains he only cares about Will's future and true desires, while Lambeau's pressure could ruin him. Lambeau walks away silently, leaving Will with Sean. Sean tells Will his fight with Lambeau isn't personal, it's tied to old issues. He mentions he's prepared a report for the judge about Will. Will asks if Sean's had other patients like him. For the first time, Sean opens up.
My father was an alcoholic, mean fucking drunk. He'd come home hammered, looking to wail on somebody. So I'd provoke him so he wouldn't go after my mother and little brother.
Will tries to brush it off with a joke, but breaks down, finally sharing his pain about his abusive, alcoholic father. In his final session, Will tells Sean he's decided to take a job at one of the companies Lambeau suggested, and is happy about it. Sean says he's planning to travel and gives Will his number. That evening, Will celebrates his birthday with his friends, who gift him a car they built from old parts. Lambeau visits Sean, and they apologize to each other before heading to a bar for drinks. Meanwhile, Chuck comes to pick up Will as usual, but finds he's not home. Chuck is thrilled, just as he'd always hoped in his dreams. Will left a note for Sean, who reads it and learns Will quit the job and went to California to find Skylar. In the note, Will quotes the same line Sean once told his friends when he skipped a baseball game to meet his future wife. And with that beautiful touch, the story ends. It teaches us that true victory in life comes not from degrees or jobs, but from finding real love and your true purpose.